From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Senator Martha McSally speaking out about sexual assaults in the military, what she says needs to be done to stop the widespread problem.
Plus, protests breaking out on ASU's Tempe campus as Border Patrol agents set out to recruit at an on-campus job fair.
And could vaping trigger seizures? The FDA says there could be a link, so they've launched an investigation.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Taylor Rocha.
And I'm Blaine McCormick. Thank you for joining us.
It was just a month ago that Arizona Senator Martha McSally shocked Washington, announcing she had been raped by a superior officer while in the Air Force.
But McSally says admission has given her a new purpose, one she took to a forum today on campus sexual assault. Cronkite News reporter Alyssa Klink was at the event.
I'm here at the U.S. Naval Academy, where the military careers of the nation's top naval officers begin. But Arizona Senator Martha McSally said something else begins here, and on other college campuses, something more sinister.
Look to your left and look to your right. 1 in 3 women here probably have actually been through this, and 1 in 4 men. That's a little uncomfortable to think about.
Those uncomfortable statistics refer to the number of people who will experience sexual assault in their lifetimes. McSally is one of those statistics. She said during an Armed Services Committee hearing on sexual assault in the military that she was preyed upon and raped while in the Air Force.
So, like you, I am also a military sexual assault survivor.
A recent Defense Department report said there were 117 assaults reported at the nation's 3 military academies in the 2017 to 2018 academic year, 5 more than the year before. While today's discussion was at the Naval Academy, it aims to address a problem on college campuses nationwide.
This isn't easy work. The target populations are constantly changing. However, we firmly believe that it is our responsibility to be vigilant and vocal about listening to our students and protecting them.
This was the first of 2 days of sessions that drew officials from more than 100 campuses across the country, including the University of Arizona and Arizona State. McSally said she never came forward because she didn't trust the system to handle her case. She now insists that the military should be allowed to investigate its own. She made a pointed exception today, however, for students at the military academies.
We put, 20-year-olds in charge of 18-year-olds in a military structure.
McSally said the meeting here is just the first step, and she expects to continue the fight, pointing to a Pentagon announcement of a task force on the issue last month that she said has been very responsive. In Annapolis, Maryland, Alyssa Klink, Cronkite News.
Social norms have begun to change, they've shifted, and the boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. And I get it. I hear what they're saying. I understand it. And I'll be much more mindful. That's my responsibility.
Former Vice President Joe Biden posting this video on Twitter yesterday, saying he'll make changes after multiple women have come forward accusing him of inappropriate touching. 2 women recently said Biden made them feel uncomfortable in their encounters. Biden responded to the accusations by saying he had always viewed politics as a way to make connections and show support and affection. The accusations against the former VP come as he's weighing whether to run for president in 2020. Biden says it's his responsibility to hear out the women making the accusations. In the post, he mentioned his lifelong work to prevent domestic abuse. He's also gotten support from women who say he's never made them feel uncomfortable and endorsed his commitment to empower women.
2 months after it let the Violence Against Women Act lapse, the House today overwhelmingly voted to renew the law. The act funds domestic violence shelters, extends protections to Native American women and to partners in LGBTQ relationships, and more. But getting the bill passed was a fight, as Lev Junius reports live from our Washington bureau.
The final vote of 263 to 158 was a partisan one. Only 1 Democrat voted no. But while everyone agrees on the goal of the bill, Republicans accuse House Democrats of dressing the bill up like a Christmas tree, with liberal amendments that are sure to doom the measure in the Senate. For Democrats like Phoenix Congressman Greg Stanton, today's vote was a victory and, more importantly, badly needed to protect victims.
Today was an important vote. As you know, in Arizona, sadly, we're one of the top 10 states in the country for death by domestic violence.
That tragedy is even worse in Native American communities. A National Institute of Justice research report said 84% of Indigenous women experience violence, 56% is sexual, and it is said 90% of assaults are committed by non-tribal members. Juana Majo Dixon, Secretary of National Congress of American Indians, said it's nearly impossible for tribes to prosecute non-tribal members, but VAWA would change that.
The laws that we had, unless the tribe had an agreement with the person who was non-native that married into your society to be governed by the laws, there were no laws that protected us. And our tribal police, our tribal, anyone who had any authority to address that on the tribal lands could only go so far, because they would rely on their constitutional rights to protect them, and the laws couldn't break through that.
Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, a survivor of domestic abuse herself, said prosecutions like that are important, but she said that Democrats added too many elements that are not needed to protect women and children.
We all want to protect women and children, and VAWA has typically received wide-ranging bipartisan support. However, this legislation fails to do that. We should be focusing on common sense, bipartisan reforms to VAWA instead of on a bill that is a non-starter in the U.S. Senate and a bill that will not be signed by the President.
Lesko pointed to provisions that she said would violate the Second Amendment of confiscating guns or require transgender victims to be housed in shelters with vulnerable women. Stanton says he does not understand the opposition. What's important, he says, is the bottom line support for women who have been victims.
There are so many victims, particularly in Arizona. I don't know why they voted against it. Whatever reason it may have been, you're overthinking it. Supporting victims is the right thing to do.
33 House Republicans crossed the aisle to vote for the bill today, despite the margin of victory in the Democrat-controlled House. However, the bill still has to go to the Republican-controlled Senate, where its future is less certain. In Washington, Love Junius, Cronkite News.
Former Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords tweeting, quote, "Today marks a victory for domestic violence survivors. The House just passed the Violence Against Women Act with new provisions to close the boyfriend loophole and stop abusers and stalkers from accessing guns. The Senate must follow suit."
Right now, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is at the U.S.-Mexico border in Yuma. She's meeting with DHS and ICE officials to talk about increased security concerns. Nielsen directed Customs Border Protection to speed up its planned surge of at least 750 officers to assist Border Patrol agents along areas of the southern border. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has pulled back on threats to shut the border down.
We're going to give them a one-year warning, and if the drugs don't stop or largely stop, we're going to put tariffs on Mexico and products, in particular cars. The whole ball game is cars. It's the big ball game. With many countries, it's cars. And if that doesn't stop the drugs, we close the border.
Trump had said he would close the border, or at least large sections of it, this week if Mexico does not stop illegal immigration into the United States. His remarks marked a sharp change from his message yesterday when he threatened to close the border unless Congress, quote, immediately addresses loopholes in U.S. immigration law. Trump is scheduled to visit the border tomorrow.
Developing now, protests breaking out at ASU's Tempe campus after Border Patrol officers participated in an on-campus job fair. The action erupted just days after 2 students were arrested at the University of Arizona for protesting a similar event. ASU students today were heard shouting various attacks against both ASU and its president, Michael Crow. Take a listen. Other chants were in support of migrant students, with the chants being, quote, "Migrant students are welcome here. No papers, no fear." So far, no word on if any students were arrested as a result of the protests. A day of action across the nation today as crowds plan to gather to call for Attorney General William Barr to release the full Mueller report. Campaigners have organized more than 300 events across the country to make it clear they want the entire report made public. The movement comes as Barr failed to meet the deadline set by congressional leaders to release it. Here in Arizona, protests are taking place right now at the Arizona State Capitol. So we want to hear from you now. Do you think the full report should be released? So far, about 91% of you say yes. Just go to our Cronkite News Twitter feed to join the conversation and vote in our live interactive poll.
Coming up next on Cronkite News, how a school ID could save your child's life. We'll tell you all about the statewide initiative going on right now to prevent teen suicides.
And first responders are usually the ones saving people's lives. But after the break, I'll tell you about a program to help save theirs.
Stay in the know on the go. At Cronkite News, we work hard to report the facts and keep you updated, whether we're on set or on the scene.
Taking it from the studio to the field. So I'm here in South Phoenix.
In Phoenix, we're just a click away. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles. In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem. Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
Your child's life.
The Arizona School ID Initiative began at the Paradise Valley School District and has since morphed into a statement effort to prevent suicides.
Cronkite News reporter Madeline Haller spoke with Teen Lifeline about how prevalent this effort is in the West Valley schools compared to campuses in the East Valley.
I can look back now, goosebumps just thinking about it. I can think of all the people that intersected with Andy's life, and he said different things that had anybody known, including myself, would have been a red flag.
Parents like Leanne Hull wish they would have known more about signs that could lead to suicide. Hull lost her son Andy when he was just 16 years old. She says he seemed to be a happy and well-involved high schooler.
No one really talked about suicide and prevention methods, and it just wasn't part of our thought process or our language. We certainly never thought that this was going to happen to us, as that's the way it is for most people.
Hull shares that Teen Lifeline hotline wasn't discussed at her son's school when he died by suicide in 2012. Now, the phone number is printed on students' school IDs. Nikki Kuntz, a clinical director at Teen Lifeline, says that the East Valley was the first to adopt the Arizona School ID Initiative, and West Valley schools are now jumping on board in larger quantities.
This past year, we started a new relationship with an ID company that covers most of the West Valley schools. So with that relationship, they actually were able to promote it to schools that didn't know about it.
She says the schools that haven't yet adopted the initiative are likely unsure of how to implement the resource on their campus.
A lot of schools still don't know, one, it exists. Two, they don't understand that we'll help them to secure it for as free as possible. that it doesn't have to just be started in the beginning of the school year.
Kuntz and Hull both agree that creating an environment that normalizes conversations about suicide can be life-saving. Hull reflects on her son's memory, but moves forward knowing she too can help other young people and adults realize you matter.
He was just a gift, really, to all of us, to the world, to life, because he really brought a lot. I tell people that what Andy did in 16 years, there are people that live 85 years and never do all of the things and contribute to the world like he did.
Teen Lifeline hotline information is on the back of ID cards at more than 170 schools, reaching well over 200,000 students valley-wide. In Phoenix, Madeline Haller, Cronkite News.
Teens who need help can text or call the Teen Lifeline hotline at the number on your screen, 800-248-8336. Parents and schools can find resources about the topics that are troubling teens online at teenlifeline.org.
Students valley-wide have begun testing for AZ Merit this week. They usually start with the writing portion, but today, a glitch in the system is affecting 58 districts and charter schools across the state. The issue teachers and students are facing is with the text-to-speech feature. On Chromebooks, which a number of schools use to administer online tests, the Arizona Department of Education's assessment vendor, AIR, is working on resolving it. Their solution? For schools to administer the reading and math tests first and leave writing for last. While there's no formal timeline on when the glitch will be fixed, the department hopes it will be as soon as the end of today.
New info tonight showing Arizona teachers are paid amongst the worst in the country, with the average salary nearly $12,000 below the national salary average. That's according to a new report from the National Education Association. The report ranks Arizona 45th for salaries, with teachers across the state making a little less than $50,000 a year, while the national average is more than $61,000. Due to the low pay, Arizona continues to suffer from a teacher shortage, with 1,700 vacancies in classrooms right now.
The Food and Drug Administration says it's investigating reports of people suffering seizures after vaping. They've identified 35 such cases between 2010 and early this year. Cronkite News reporter Peter Gong is joining us in studio to explain.
Most of the seizures involved young people. The FDA says seizures are a known possible side effect of nicotine poisoning, but emphasized that it has not determined a definitive link between seizures and vaping. And the agency notes there is no clear pattern to the seizures. Today, I talked to the Arizona Department of Health Services. They won't comment on the FDA report, but did say they're concerned that young people consider vaping harmless.
They don't realize that it's highly addictive because it contains high concentrations of nicotine, and that at their age, in their brain developing years still, it can cause permanent damage.
The Arizona Department of Health Services is launching a campaign called Facts Over Flavor, which aims to raise awareness on the harmful effects of vaping. And the FDA is urging anyone who had a seizure after vaping to report any issues through its safety reporting portal. Live in the newsroom, Peter Gahn, Cronkite News.
In an effort to prevent the risk of cancer for first responders, a community initiative is working to detect those signs early, which can save lives. Cronkite News reporter Amani Stevens learned more about the Joint Cancer Screening and Early Detection Program in the Valley. Amani?
First responders put their lives on the front line, but sometimes they have to step back to take care of themselves. A Valley firefighter had to do just that after receiving a screening he says saved his life.
Time. You know, if we can't prevent cancer, we can catch it.
And that timing matters for Jason Underwood.
This is the last kind of guy that you would expect to have cancer.
After receiving a free screening in November, doctors with the Vincere Cancer Center said he had thymoma cancer because the day-to-day job duties put him and other first responders at a higher risk.
We're exposed to a lot of different chemicals. When things burn, they put off different chemicals because they change composition and stuff. And then we're next to diesel engines running all day.
And often the symptoms go unnoticed.
And Jason is a result of that. 42 years old, in shape,
asymptomatic. He found out he was diagnosed with a carcinogen, or with an active form of cancer, and they were able to go in there and fix him. And now he is healthy. He's on a road to recovery.
A shift in medical conditions that Underwood says first responders now deal with.
When I started, the big thing was cardiac issues. People were dying from heart attacks because they're out there, they're not eating healthy, they're not taking care of themselves, they go out and exert themselves too much, and then obviously they have heart issues. Now it's switched to where more firefighters are dying from cancer than they are heart attacks.
Today, he is most thankful he'll be there for moments he could have missed.
That was probably the most stressful part of it. You know, just my family, my wife and my kids, thinking that I may not be there for them.
The screenings are free of charge, and they've started a First Responder Friday where testing is available. Live in the control room, Imani Stevens, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is dedicated to covering health news and issues that affect Arizonans. Do you have a question concerning public health, medical research, or healthcare trends? Text HEALTH to 602-536-9815, and our team will help answer those questions. Again, that's HEALTH to 602-536-9815.
Do you get anxious, nervous, or even faint when confronted with getting a shot at the doctor's office?
If this sounds familiar, you may have a needle phobia. A study by the U.S. National Library of Medicine says up to 50% of children exhibit a fear of needles.
And Dr. Amy Baxter of Pain Care Lab says a fear of needles and injections is often the reason adults decide not to get vaccines, and even the reason they avoid receiving medical care altogether.
That phobia comes from a very specific experience when they were 4 to 6 years old, and for most people, it's when all of the booster shots were clustered on the same day. You've got a 3-year period for the booster vaccines, and so in compliance with the CDC guidelines, you could stagger them out, you can space them.
Dr. Baxter says your needle phobia may decrease with age, but she says the best way to get past this fear is by conditioning yourself with positive experiences at the doctor's office. Well, already it's early April, and it seems as though that pretty much summer has already come here.
Oh, the weather's been perfect. I've been driving with my windows down. Jody, tell us all about it.
It's definitely going to continue to increase this weekend. Even today was so nice. A little bit of wind at 7 miles per hour, but it's really nice. It feels so good outside. It's about 82 degrees outside right now in Phoenix. Like I said, 7 miles per hour of wind, so just enough. Looking at the next 8 hours, you're going to see we're going to hit our peak at 5 p.m. at 84 degrees. We're going to get into the 70s at 7 p.m., and then we're going to continue to decline into the 60s at 11 p.m. Tomorrow, you're going to see the day is going to start out pretty cloudy, and then it's going to start in the 60s, reaching 70 at 12 p.m., and then 4 p.m., we're going to reach our peak at 75 degrees. Across the state, we're going to be in the 50s in the Grand Canyon and Flagstaff, Yuma in the 80s, and then 70s and 60s kind of throughout the state. This weekend, we're going to start out at 77 for a high on Friday, then we're getting into the 80s, reaching those 90s on Monday and Tuesday, and then it's going to cool back down on Wednesday and Thursday. With your Cronkite News Weather Update, I'm Jody Guerrero.
Now, it seems like we're back in the Arizona weather that we know and love, and I don't know about you, but all I want to do is watch some baseball.
Well, Taylor, you're in luck because the Diamondbacks have their home opener tomorrow at Chase Field, and we've got all the details coming up next. But first, here's a look at what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
Arizona Horizon, new methods allow doctors to treat brain tumors with less invasive procedures. And a museum exhibit chronicles a dark time in our nation's history. That's the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour, making sense of how to get sick children to take the proper medicine. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour. I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
by the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Blaine, it is my favorite time of the year. Baseball is back, and it's only been back for a week, but I will say it feels a little bit weird that the Diamondbacks haven't been in town.
Yeah, it's true. The good news for Diamondback fans, though, is the team is kicking off its home schedule tomorrow. The Diamondbacks, who have opened the season with a 3-4 record, will open up a 3-game series against the reigning World Series champions, the Boston Red Sox. Zach Godley will toe the rubber for the D-backs. First pitch is set for 4:10 p.m.
But fans are encouraged to arrive at Chase Field early. The team is throwing an opening day street festival outside the stadium beginning at noon. ASU men's basketball coach Bobby Hurley is set to throw out a ceremonial first pitch, and there will be a flyover from 4 F-35 jets from Luke Air Force Base. That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.